Are you ready for an adventure?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yeah. Oh, I want to say, hi. I'm Judy.
And I'm Julie.
And together we are knitting around LA.
And welcome to episode 3.
And to returning viewers, that's wonderful that you've come back to us. And new viewers, thank you for finding us on the internet.
On the internet. Before we get into programming,
yes.
I want to do some housekeeping.
Ah.
Now we did.
Housekeeping? You don't mean like actually cleaning? Oh, good. I was saying you got the wrong girl for that though.
Now we did. I reviewed episode 2, and we did kind of cover why we didn't end up going downtown, and we do want to do that. That we talked so much about the last bookstore and Gather and downtown. We want to do it. We don't exactly have it scheduled yet. But, and those of you who saw episode 2 may have noticed that we have some technical challenges. Our sound wasn't very good, and thank you for bearing with us. We're working on it.
It's a huge learning curve. Julie and I have never done this before. We are learning as we go. It used to be called flying by the seat of your pants, and so everything.
We're kind of flying by our seatbelts.
We're flying by our seatbelts. And we don't have very sophisticated equipment other than the iPhone, and so we're.
Oh my gosh.
We just have a slew of traffic coming down the mountain today.
But, so let's, at the risk of saying something we don't end up doing, but we do have this schedule.
Yes.
So, we'll tell you what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
I think we might be okay. It's hard to tell because of the glare.
Right.
We're, again, going, wow, we've got a lot of traffic. Mm-hmm. We are again, here it is. Here's
your break.
We are again going to Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. We're going to go to Bergamot Station. And Bergamot Station is a art gallery complex in Santa Monica that was created in an old railroad depot.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very industrial.
Yeah. And
it's very cool.
Yes, it is. So you've been there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
One of my absolute favorite paper places, Hiromi Paper, used to have their shop there.
Did they move?
Yeah, they did.
Do you know where they moved to?
No, I haven't been there. I think it's somewhere on the west side, though.
Oh, well, that would make sense. Okay, so, and then now the new Expo line of the transit, it's the Expo line, has a stop at Bergamot Station that took out some of the galleries. However, it's still there. And we're going to have a guest on the podcast today. My former fiber art professor who has become a dear friend. And we're joining her. We're all going to go look at some art together and have some conversation. Okay? And so, do we have any other chatter before we... So today, because we're going to have this conversation later, I want to do a little bit of our knitting talk in the car while we're driving. And I've got some items staged here.
Oh, all right. I can help you with that.
In case you want to show them. And I have my sock bag here.
I know. Okay. It might be hard in the car.
Well, let's see how we do.
Okay.
Okay, so I worked on my socks some more, and I've gotten a good bit of distance, and that I think I want to show my knitting later when we're sitting still.
Okay.
But
I've made some progress on my sock as well.
So, and and we both switched needles.
I switched twice.
Yeah.
We'll tell you about that later.
And I did switch to, and they did, those needles said on them.
Which needles?
The ones that I bought at the Altered Stitch the other day, right? They were 1.5.
Right.
Right? Okay, they're here.
Okay.
One of them's here.
all right. I'll look. Don't do that while you drive on the mountain.
And the boy needles also.
Yes.
Okay, but now, so
this is the new.
I know. Let me explain.
Okay.
The Knitter's Pride needles. Even though now the paint is worn off of all of them, but they did say 1.5 and they're 2.5 millimeter, right?
Yes.
So you look at the boy needles.
They say size 1.
And 2.5 millimeters.
Right.
And I have my little stitch
gauge.
My little, it's there. It's probably under my phone now.
It is.
Okay, so that, and I checked my needle sizer. Those needles are exactly the same size.
So why would one read 1.5 and the other 1 if they're both at 2.5 millimeter?
That's what I don't know. And I thought, well, I'm going to go on Ravelry and look. I went on Ravelry and I started combing through one of the forums.
Right.
And I found a similar discussion for double-pointed needles, but it was for sizes like 2 and 3. And some of them, if they're US, they're different sizes than UK ones because the UK or European ones all go by millimeters, not by these numbered sizes.
Right.
And so if there's a millimeter that's in between the US 2 and 3, they don't have a number for it. But that doesn't explain why...
Wait, they don't have a 2.5 millimeter?
No, I mean the millimeters they have.
Right.
But there's not a needle size in between US 2 and US 3.
Oh. All right, I'm not quite...
Well, get the little needle sizer again. Because see, each needle size, which this is now really confusing. So each needle size is a different number of millimeters,
correct.
Right? So what is a 2?
A 2 is a 3 millimeter.
And size 3 is?
It's hard for me.
It's teeny.
It's size 3. US 3 is a 3.25 millimeter.
Well, anyway, the thread was saying that it's something or other about this is why. And so, but I don't know. And if the Knitter's Pride, I thought they were a US manufacturer.
Well, it said made in India on the back, but I don't know whether that means that the needles were made in India or the packaging was made in India. I'm not sure.
And then boy, where does it say the boy needles are made?
Echo in China. They're made in China.
Okay, I don't know. So, anyway, so I don't know. And once the paint rubs off of these,
right,
these Knitter's Pride needles, essentially they're size 1 needles. I mean, you know,
right.
US size 1. I'm beginning to think that we should just all switch to millimeters and just call them by literally the size that they are in crochet hooks also, because crochet hooks, you know, are alphabetical letters.
Yes, that's a strange system.
Well, this is a strange system too, where a size 2 is 3 millimeters.
Well, it's strange because it's not uniform, and it's easy enough to make it uniform because the millimeter is a much more accurate measurement.
Right.
So
making it uniform would require changing the thinking of millions of people.
Oh. Well, wouldn't that be easy? It seems so logical.
It does.
I mean, doesn't it?
Yes. But so that was just a needle observation.
I wonder how that, I don't know anything about knitting or crochet tool history, but I'm wondering where the naming of these things, when this happened.
Before global communication, they developed their systems independently, and now that we all, you know, meet up on the internet all the time, now all of our little differences in naming are kind of bumping up against each other.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, the millimeter size, I think, is far more accurate.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, you're not, you don't equivocate. If it's a 2.5 millimeter, well, that's a standard number.
But
you can't vary that.
Here's a pattern note.
Oh, pattern note, by the way, you left your shawl.
I did notice.
Yes, and I brought it with me.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
So, pattern note. most patterns will say, like our sock pattern that we're using, it says needle size US 1 to 3 or something like that.
Okay.
So it will say if it's a US size, and that's kind of how everybody is making up for the differences, by making sure they say whether it's a UK or a US size. And then if it's not a US size, they will say millimeter. It'll say the size in millimeters. You can put those down. All right. So another note on the socks. I've gotten a couple of inches into the stockinette part of the socks, and
your striping looks really pretty.
It's really pretty.
It is. It's really great.
Yeah, and this is just not a good setting to show it.
No, we'll do it when we sit down.
But I'm at gauge.
Oh wow!
In the stockinette, it's at gauge.
Oh, maybe then I am too, since we seem to knit very similarly.
But remember, I reduced my. But we can check it again. And this is why they like the instructors and the knitting advisors tell you to knit a larger swatch when you knit a swatch, because you'll get a more accurate measurement if you're measuring in the middle of a field that's like 4 inches square. That if you just do a little 2-inch swatch, you may not get as accurate of a measurement of how you're going to knit that pattern.
Right.
So anyway, that's pattern notes. Another thing, my ongoing discussion of my white top that.
Oh yeah, the collar. I mean the neckline.
The pixelated neckline.
Yes.
I took some pictures of it that I think that I'll share somewhere on social media wherever I can, so that we can, have like a progress check. And I'll I don't know where I'll put them, but I'll put them up. And I still haven't washed it.
Okay.
Because I keep thinking I'm going to do it in the morning before I leave home, but it takes time.
Yes.
And I always end up with not enough time. But like if I have a half an hour before I'm getting ready to leave, it's not enough time.
No.
So anyway, there's that.
Do we have any other sort of recap notes from episode 2? Anything that we wound up not doing, like going downtown? Or...
Yeah, well, we didn't go downtown apparently. Okay. We haven't seen your Nanette top for your daughter.
Oh, because I haven't touched it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, that's what happens.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Oh, that was a question I was going to ask, actually. I've been thinking about how many works in progress are too many works in progress?
I was just thinking that at that second, right before you said that.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
I was thinking about that this morning. It's like, how many things do you realistically have on needles?
Oh well, I actually want to make a list, and I'm a little bit also at the same time a little bit afraid to make that list. But I was thinking it might be fun to make that list and post it in the show notes.
Oh.
Because we won't be the only ones.
I know, but I would like to know how many of you guys out there in the internet land, what are your numbers of works in progress?
Maybe we can make it a thread on
Ravelry.
Yeah, we'll make it a discussion thread.
Yeah, because I'd really like to know, because I'm thinking, how many is too many? Is there too many? Is there too many?
Well, basically, philosophically, no, there's not too many. But
realistically...
So realistically, what I'm finding is, and you know how I have that big bag
yes.
from Thailand?
Yes.
Well, I can carry 3 projects in there, and that's what I've been doing. But I have quite a few other things in progress that are kind of stored or parked in my studio, my house, somewhere, and so it seems that realistically I can bounce between the 3 of them and keep them going, and no more than that. Well, partly because I can't carry any more than that in my bag. So I'm working on my socks, I'm working on my diagonal striped top, and I'm working on my waiting for rain shawl.
Well, I guess I have 3 then going as well, because I've got my socks, I've got the Nanette top for Jess, and I have the vest that I've been working on for myself, my purple sparkly vest.
So that's
maybe 3 is an optimum number.
Equilibrium, where we're at equilibrium, you know, something, yeah. So
I just wished then that I was, is it the goddess Shiva that has all of those arms? Because I'd like to be able to knit more than one project at a time.
Like, and Stitching the High Notes, she had an episode where she was saying, I just want to make all the things.
Yeah, that's, so get it.
You said that you have a quilt you need to do before
Oh,
you go
yes,
to the wedding?
yes, I'm starting it when I get home this afternoon.
Well, I have a project that I need to do too that I haven't even mentioned, and it's not started. There's yarn for it in the back of the car.
Oh, there's yarn? It involves yarn? What are you doing?
A crocheted amigurumi monkey. Well, not amigurumi so much, but just a crocheted monkey stuffed animal.
Oh, that sounds cute.
For a niece of mine, one of my sister's kids.
Sounds adorable. How big's it going to be?
Oh, I don't.
However large it turns out.
I have to. Well, yeah. I think that the pattern for a worsted weight yarn is an 8 to 9 inch, and I got like a super bulky, because it's real fuzzy and soft.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be a little bit bigger than the 8 to 9. But I also want to crochet it fairly tight. And anyway, but I've got to do this monkey because I promised to do this monkey.
We're going to see the start, and, you know.
We will have to see
some
if
updates.
the monkey shows up on the podcast.
Gotcha. Okay. All right then.
So, what?
I think
Is it coastal eddy? Is it fog?
Yes, it is.
Fog.
It's fog.
And again, we're not shooting out the front of the car.
No, so you can't see that we've just come down the mountain, and we're
going to make the green light the longest light in the world.
Yep, and we're now at the Pacific Coast Highway, PCH, and we are on our way. We're pointed towards Santa Monica, and we're on our way.
It's foggy on the coast.
It's very foggy.
And it was very clear. Well, not very clear in the valley. There's no wind, and so I think we have an inversion layer because the smog was sitting down low in the valley, like it was the car exhaust, like it was trapped.
Well, shall we catch you in Santa Monica then?
Yeah, let's pause now and pick them up when we get to Bergamot Station in Santa Monica.
Got it.
So here's a little view of the slightly foggy Pacific Coast Highway, and so this is what our weather is today. Okay, hello again. Here we are at the cafe at Bergamot Station, and I want to introduce B. Colman, who was my professor in fiber art at Cal State Northridge when I did my bachelor's degree there.
Hello, everybody.
So now, so before and we're going to have a conversation, but we want to follow up in the car. We said we would show our socks later.
So we're going to do that very quickly now.
Yes, so here's our progress, and I'm very happy with the stripiness in my sock.
And I think mine is coming along. It's kind of pretty.
Okay, so that was the knitting portion for today. Now, did you have a question you wanted to ask us?
I have a question. Just make sure that you speak up. Yeah. So,
I understood that you wanted to talk about the relationship between what the artist thinks she's going to make, what actually comes out, and what the viewer thinks is there.
Generally, yes.
So my question is, do you think that an artist who makes something thinks about how it's going to be received?
Sometimes, yes. Yes, sometimes we do. Especially, well, when I was exhibiting, I would think that. And then if you are making objects, things, your wonderful things, if you really are focusing on sales and you are gearing your work towards selling, then that's got to be a focus of your work. If you really want to sell, you have to respond to customer feedback.
I agree. But what if you are here at Bergamot? We saw art galleries with artists' work in the gallery, and I wonder to what extent were they thinking about selling work, or were they making what was important to them?
Of course, you would have to ask the individual artist, but my exhibition work, my woven wall hangings and my coiled baskets, and for those who don't know, my coiled baskets are made with bottle caps and plastic trash and telephone wire, and I have actually gotten feedback, not directly to me, but through a third person, that somebody wouldn't put it in an art show because it was plastic, because the materials weren't good enough to be considered art. Yet when I make that kind of work, I make what I want to make, and I'm making a statement, and I don't make it with regards to selling.
And my response to those people is, don't buy it.
And they don't. So,
or you make something else.
Yeah.
Or...
I kind of think that the pieces that we saw today, I don't think that the intent of the artist whose work we saw exhibited had the intent of making it for sale. I think that it wound up, the pieces were brought into the gallery and they, in many cases, have sold. But I don't think that was the primary impetus in the artist to create the work. And I think that we had an earlier discussion today when we were at the Pacific Standard Time show of the Latin American Masters.
Yes.
And we were talking about the guy whose work you're very familiar with.
Olga de Amaral?
Yeah, and her pieces are absolutely extraordinary, and they command, at this point in her life, a commensurate price. But, she's gone through probably a lot of iterations of her work, and as well as it's selling now, I'm sure that that's not first and foremost in her mind when she makes it.
And we don't know. She may, over the years, have tailored her work knowing what people that generally respond to better. We don't know.
That's true.
My guess is no.
Yeah. Kind of my guess is too.
I've known her work since I first saw it in 1971. And all in all, it's changed in the execution, but it hasn't changed in the ideas.
Yeah, and the work that I first saw in Kansas City in about 2000, in that little tiny gallery in the house that we went to, it's still her. I mean, I would recognize this work as hers. So it still has her voice.
Oh, absolutely.
All these.
So it fits within the body, the context of what she's produced.
Yeah, it's got her visual stamp on it.
Oh, that work was amazing today. Yeah. The weaving and everything.
So, and then our conversation, the conversation we want to have with you picks up on what Judy and I were talking about in episode 1, because it applies to artists and also people who may not consider themselves artists as in knitters, and anybody who makes something with their hands. That there is often this gulf between what we imagine it's going to be like and what it turns out looking like, and we as the person making it is often disappointed that it doesn't match what we thought it was going to look like, while all of our friends around us are telling us it's absolutely gorgeous and we shouldn't be disappointed. And so can you respond to that? And because you experience that with a lot of students.
Oh, well, my experience with students, for the most part, has been, oh, what I really wanted to do was this and this and this, and it didn't come out the way I wanted it to. And my response was always, but this is what you have. And what you see is what you get. And let's talk about what you have, not what you don't have.
Right.
And if you want to do something that is different from this, then do it. But you can't put that weight on this piece because nobody can see what it is you didn't have.
Right.
Now, that's a really good way to point that out.
And in the last couple of weeks since our conversation, I've been thinking about how I changed over the years to where I don't experience that disappointment as much anymore, and especially in my artwork. And because what I think the conclusion I've come to is that we can't actually fully visualize what it's going to look like and what the materials are going to do when we put them together. And I used to experience, I would start out with a plan. I sketch very little, but I would have a plan, and I would have my materials, and I would lay them next to each other to do the color palette, and I might make small samples of technique to decide what I was going to do. And then as I'm making the piece, there would be a point where the piece, I used to say the piece would take over, and from there till the end, I could just follow along and make it be what it wanted to be.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't like to anthropomorphize inanimate objects, so I'm not saying that the piece had a consciousness.
No.
But what happened was, as I was putting it together, it gained its own life as a piece of visual art, and then I had to direct it to finish it the way that it was forming anyway.
Well, writers say that all the time. Writers say, well, I started writing this, or they're asked the question, well, did you visualize that this or this or this was going to happen? And I've never heard anyone say anything other than, well, it depends. I'll get to a certain point and the character takes over. And the character does what it's going to do, not necessarily what I want it to do. And I think that's the same.
Yeah.
Because I think, for me anyway, what happens is that as I'm working, I begin to make little minor adjustments. Oh, I want more of this color because when I see it next, then I know that it needs more of this color to have the effect that I want.
And I didn't plan it because I didn't know how it was going to look until I saw it in the piece.
Exactly.
And that's where then I need to follow, it's kind of follow what I'm seeing and finish the composition that I didn't imagine to begin with.
Well, I know that in the first episode we talked about, I had a disappointment with how I felt my fade shawl came out. And I realized over the course of the few weeks since then, I've been thinking about it, that it wasn't so much the shawl itself. I think that piece I knit well.
Yes.
I think I knit it well.
Yes.
I think what I found that it's part of my expression is wanting more color more vibrancy in my work, more, color pizzazz, color contrast. So in work that I'm doing, and of course my softs are kind of, I think, muddied. They're soft and in color. I'm going to look to create my next pieces with more of that, maybe, the contrast and complementary color sets, so that the pieces in and of themselves are going to have not of the structure, but through color will be more vibrant.
And that shawl still, in that palette, it's still gorgeous. And so the most successful thing to do, instead of trying to suddenly add color halfway through a shawl or something like that, is to finish it and then work it in, start with it in the beginning of a new piece.
Right. Well, I mean,
because you've experienced people trying to change things midstream.
I started out as a weaver, and when I was in college, I was going to make a raya rug.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know that technique.
And I had done a drawing. The rug was going to be about, maybe 20 by 30 or something like that. And I had made a drawing, colored it in with the design, and as I started to weave with the colors that I was using, I realized that this is just terrible. And so I started modifying the design a little bit and modifying the color. So in the end, I had a piece that was half gorgeous and half not gorgeous. And that was really where I learned about color. So I understand that process of starting something, and my consciousness of what I was doing took over and made me change it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't come out looking the way I had it in my mind.
Right.
And so it turned out half of one thing, half of something else.
Now, with experience, what steps leading up to the actual weaving would you take to avoid that?
More drawing.
Oh. What about sampling with the materials on the loom before you start the piece?
A friend of mine said, if you cannot learn to draw what you want, you will get what you see. He said, if you cannot learn to draw what you want, you won't get.
You will get what you draw.
You will only get what you draw. And that's exactly what happened to me with that rug. Because nobody said to me at that point, the color in this really isn't very exciting. Why don't you try another version of it?
In the drawings.
In the drawings.
Yeah.
And had I done that, then it would have been fine. And as far as sampling, especially if you're weaving or knitting or doing anything with fiber where you have two colors next to each other, you have to try it out, because you absolutely cannot imagine what it's going to look like.
You can't. Not at all.
You cannot.
You can't. Whereas, like with paint or another that kind of medium, as you're working on it, you can mix color. Right. But when you're working with yarns, you have the yarns have the color in them. You can only combine them.
Right.
And I learned to do that weaving my wall pieces on the loom as well. I always leave room for samples, and I would sample, and most of the time, the way I thought that it was going to be in the samples, and while I'm sampling, I'm altering and changing and experimenting with the colors, and I end up in the final piece not with what I started out thinking I was going to use, because you have to see it in the piece to see how the colors and the materials are going to interact.
Absolutely.
That's why I always swatch a lot with knitting. Because I come from a background of samples enhancing my success.
You learned well.
Because I had a great teacher.
But that as a teacher, that was the thing students hated doing. That was the thing they resisted. You have to make samples. You have to try this. You cannot predict it. And finally, some of them learned that that's the truth.
And a lot of knitters, and since we're addressing knitters a lot, knitters resist swatching.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I think perhaps it's because they feel, it's going to be a waste of time. Look at all the effort I'm putting in to knitting this, sample piece, the 4x4 or whatever it is. And there's also for me, I can tell you that there's part of it is the excitement of wanting to get in and start.
I understand that.
It's like I'm like the kid chomping at the bit. I want to
Right.
do it. I want to do it. I want to do it now.
But see, that's where doing the sample and seeing how it's going to look can be exciting. But the sampling reduces that disappointment at the back end. And Daryl Lancaster, the weaver.
Right.
She teaches people who are sewing, making garments with their hand-woven fabrics, and they don't want to sew a sample off of a pattern to see if it's going to fit. What's called a muslin. And she'll say, and this is very accurate for some weavers, it's like, you raised the sheep, you sheared the sheep, you processed the wool, you dyed the wool, you spun the wool, you wove the fabric, and you don't want to make a muslin of the jacket?
Yeah, that doesn't seem.
And so for knitters, it's like you spent $30 on a skein of yarn, and you don't want to make a 4x4 swatch just to be sure? That's that's the ongoing conversation among knitters.
Yeah.
To swatch or not to swatch.
I think all artists. We saw in one of the galleries. We saw the work by Lupin, and most of what he showed were small sketches. And you think about artist sketchbooks, people like Paul Klee, whose sketchbooks are fabulous, like Da Vinci. None of them did anything without sketching.
Yeah.
Do you know, we talk about our favorite vloggers, we've mentioned them before, guys that we really like are Arne and Carlos, and they've actually had a few episodes where they've shown their sketchbooks, their the way and how they use it for their art is to draw out patterns. They put in ideas from vintage, they're Norwegian sweater, garment designers, and it's amazing the wealth of material that's housed in those sketchbooks, or I think now they've become journals.
Yeah.
They're really incredible.
Well, and I mean, if you're going to put that much time and effort into a knitted garment, you should put some time and effort, into bolstering your success by swatching at the front end.
Well, I can't tell you how many garments I've had to alter one way or another. Mostly it's been to make them smaller. One time I had to make one bigger.
Well, that would I imagine would be more difficult.
I just knit a piece and inserted it in the side seam. Because I did not really do the gauging at the beginning to know, well, how many inches do I really need to make this based on the yarn that I'm using.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful magazine, I don't know if either of you subscribe or know about it, it's called Piecework.
Oh, I know of it.
Oh, I've
seen it.
Yes.
I've read it.
It's called Piecework, Craft and History, Hand in Hand. And they always have stories about historical knitting, crocheting, lace mostly, and then they will always take that, and of some of these pieces they will construct a pattern that you can make. And you were talking about the historical relationship to what you do, what that one artist did. And I think that is, first of all, a way to learn, and to be able to expand your ideas about what you can and cannot do, or what you do or do not want to do, because something will inspire you.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a nice idea to think that maybe, having an inspiration journal regardless of whether you weave or you knit, crochet.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that's a really, because you could put color, you know, pieces of magazine that have color combos that you like, or you know, things that are inspirational. That's kind of a nice takeaway.
And most designers, professional artists and designers do have that. So
that's why we don't have collections of postcards on.
That's right, like we just
yeah, we just stocked up a bunch.
So thank you very much. I think we need to leave it there. And thanks so much, Dee, for being our guest today.
You were our first.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure.
This was a lovely day at Bergamot Station, and please come back for our next episode. It's going to be episode 4, and we actually are going to take you to the Knitting Tree, LA.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you. And don't forget to subscribe, to like us, and see us next time.
That's right.
Knitting Around LA.
Subscribe just down there.
Down there.
Thank you.